Hello, and thanks for tuning in. I was planning on working on something a little different for this video, but I could not pass up the opportunity to look at this.
Hello, I'm John Coleman, and the name of this presentation is There Is No Significant Global Warming. And I'm the guy that is just doggone sure of that.
Now, normally, I wouldn't worry too much about some old man complaining that global warming isn't real. However, this is not any ordinary old man.
Now, you may think that I'm just a paid-off shill, big oil, or something of that sort. No.
You know, I actually believe that, and here's why.
They've never given me a nickel. I'm a television weathercaster with 60 years experience, a meteorologist. I was the first weatherman on Good Morning America. I'm the man who founded the Weather Channel.
That's right. This is the man who founded the Weather Channel.
And this is my accomplishment. Broadcast Meteorologist of the Year from the American Meteorological Society, of which I was a professional member for many years.
And what he just set up is known as an argument from authority fallacy. Why, he's got 60 years experience doing this. He's got certificates he sticks on his bedroom wall. It doesn't matter to your argument who you are. It only matters what your argument is.
I finally quit the AMS when it became very clear to me that the politics had gotten in the way of the science, and it was time to talk about something else.
And that's what's known as a poisoning the well fallacy, telling you something is wrong by association with something else, not relevant to the argument. In this case, the fact that the organization has become a bit political has no bearing on whether or not climate change is real.
Now, did we have a winter or what in 2013-14? Oh man, did we ever.
And you see, this is why a 60-year meteorologist with many accolades should know better than to confuse climate with weather. Climatology and meteorology are two different things. Weather refers generally to the state of the environment, let's say, over the course of perhaps a day, a week, a month, maybe even as much as a year. Climate, on the other hand, tells us about how these things work over perhaps hundreds, thousands, or even millions of years. Climate change is a thing that happens. We go from warmer periods to colder periods, like the ice ages, for example. And the reason we're not in one right now is because the climate changed since then. This is not a question. This is simple fact. If you live in northern Ohio, let's say, and there are not glaciers outside of your window, then you can thank that on natural climate change. Another important thing to not do here is confuse natural climate change, which is the natural fluctuation over perhaps thousands of years, with man-made climate change, which is typically the more contentious issue with folks like this, who believe that humans are doing nothing to affect the rate at which climate change happens. This is demonstrably false, and we'll get into it in the next few parts of this video. This is only going to be the first part, because the original video is about 36 minutes long, and you don't want to sit here for 5 hours and watch one video. So I'm going to try to keep this one to 5 or 10 minutes. Maybe 20 if we really get into it.
When I called for my brother in Ohio, his wife said he wasn't coming in from shoveling the snow to talk to some guy in California.
This is what's called an argument from anecdote. As we discussed already, climate and weather are not the same thing. You can have an average which is going up and have a few days which go down, which over the course of 100 years doesn't make any difference to the trend. So let's take a moment to look at the boring stuff, which is the weather.gov climate record period 1873 to 2017. We see that the 3 days with the highest temperature all had the same temperature, and all happened in the past 18 years, with the most recent one happening this year. The lowest temperature was approximately 30-something years ago. And we can also see the precipitation. The maximum was in 1950, the minimum was in 1920. This doesn't tell us quite as much, but when we look at those average maximum and minimum temperatures and we look at the snowfall, we can see that the climate is increasing its temperature to a position that is more favorable for snowfall in Ohio because the temperature has increased a little bit to that average maximum of around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which is much more favorable to snowfall than the minimum, which you would have seen perhaps in the 80s and before, of around 25 degrees, which is too cold in general for much snow to fall. This is the same reason Alaska doesn't tend to get a lot of snowfall, but tends to have permafrost because the little snow they get doesn't melt. So yes, it's good that he pointed out that the snowfall is still happening, because we're at a point where the snowfall should be happening more often in Northeast Ohio, on average.
Oh man, how could you tout global warming when it was the coldest, snowiest, bitterest winter in 30 years, which it was across the United States?
That's correct. As we just discussed, it was one of the colder years in the past 30. But in the past half of that, we've had the 3 warmest ever. Again, calling it global warming is not the most useful thing to do, since it's climate change. And as the climate changes, we expect more of these violent shifts between extremes than we had in the past, especially if it's being accelerated by something we're doing.
And it would take a lot of gall to put out a statement, as our NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Agency, did, claiming that it was 2013 was the warmest year. I mean, it's sheer silliness.
So let me get this straight. NOAA, which was established 46 years ago, which was originally the United States Survey of the Coast, which was established 210 years ago, decided at the last minute that they were going to get their 379 commissioned officer corps and 11,000 plus civilian employees to engage in a massive conspiracy to lie about a few weather numbers, the weather numbers which, for some reason you claim are lied about, actually produced the correct, or roughly correct, weather predictions at the time. The same information you've been relying on for your entire 60-year career, that somehow the politics got in the way and made all 379 of those commissioned officer corps record the information incorrectly, or just outright lie about it. The 11,000 plus civilian employees just somehow are being lied to about the weather they're literally observing every day. I don't understand how you can have done this for 60 years, seeing that it is indeed correct, and then turn around and say but they're lying about it even though it makes the proper predictions. I realize you're a weatherman, but I thought your standards would be a little higher than this.
It is manipulation of the data.
Well, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, so I hope you're going to present some to show that 11,000 plus people are lying about what temperature it is in Ohio to the people who live there.
Now look, let's get something clear right from the beginning. I love this planet Earth. I've been a citizen of this Earth now for darn near 80 years, and it's all I got. If I thought that we, mankind, we're damaging this beautiful little sphere, this blue marble on which we live, I would be terrified.
This is called an argument from emotion, or an appeal to emotion fallacy. Here's how my argument would work in response. You know, I have the best interest of this planet at heart also, and I know that it's incorrect, so I am a little concerned. And you should be also, because you feel the same way as me. So now that we've both made claims that have no bearing on the argument, let's move into the next part of the video. Again, an appeal to emotion is not an argument. Just saying, I don't feel like it's an issue is not an argument. Because I can just turn around and say, I feel that it is an issue, and that's also not an argument. That's why we debate facts, not feels. And actually, that's gonna be where we leave the video for today. Stay tuned for the next part in this series, where we go a little bit further into the psychology that is climate change denial. So if you enjoyed that, give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought. Share this so that people can see the kind of misinformation that is being spread. And as always, this has been Reverend JR signing off.